join us. During each session, I'll be joined by Trinity Walsh, who coordinates early post-secondary opportunities here at CPE, along with being the Northern Kentucky representative of the Kentucky Advising Academy. Each time we're together, Trinity will provide a Kentucky data moment and a challenge. It'll give you a chance to operationalize what you've heard and what we've learned together. Our goal is to provide you with some key information and resources about dual credit in Kentucky and to respond to all of the questions that you have. We do have a Q&A box that's on your screen where we can collect your questions, and we'll try to address your questions live if possible, but because this is a short webinar, we might not be able to do that. So we plan to archive your questions in an FAQ document after the webinar, and we'll share all of that information with you. You can probably find the Q&A Zoom box in your toolbar, which is either at the top or the bottom of your screen. Now, this entire webinar series, along with any resources that we share, will also be archived on CPE's website. Don't feel like you have to capture too many notes as we go today. Following the webinar, we'll communicate with you via email about how you can find all the materials and find everything that you need. So we just invite you to sit back and enjoy the conversation today. Over the next couple of months, we're going to dive into expanding opportunities so that students can have meaningful opportunities to earn dual credit while they're in high school and to jumpstart their college and career goals. We're also going to share some new and existing resources that are available to high school and college educators so that we can make that student experience even better. Today, we welcome our amazing national partner, Alex Perry of the College and High School Alliance, along with Kentucky's own James Allen Tipton, who is the House representative from the 53rd District. Representative Tipton is also the current chair of the House Education Committee and a longtime champion of dual credit in Kentucky. So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome my friend Alex Perry into the conversation. Alex coordinates the College and High School Alliance, and he's been an advisor of Kentucky's dual credit work for the last couple of years. In addition to being an expert on the national dual credit scene, Alex is a serious Trekkie. So Alex, we welcome you today into the conversation. So let's just start by hearing a little bit about your work and the College and High School Alliance.
Yeah, I suppose after that introduction, I should say live long and prosper, Robin. Thank you so much. My name is Alex Perry. I work for a DC-based education policy consulting firm called Foresight Law and Policy. But most people know me as the guy who runs the College and High School Alliance. And for those of you who don't know, the College and High School Alliance is a national partnership of organizations who really think about policy as it relates to dual credit, specifically in the space of how are we expanding access for more students, how are we ensuring that programs are high quality, and how are we maintaining student success.
All right. Thanks, Alex. I can tell that you're a big fan of opportunities that dual credit can provide for students. So tell us a little bit more about what the national research is saying about the benefits that students gain from participating in dual credit.
Yeah, national research at this point, really tells us a lot about these programs. I was part of a project just this past summer that published a new national research agenda for dual enrollment. And in addition to asking 150 new questions about dual credit, also does a really comprehensive look back at what does all the existing body of research tell us about these programs? And I think there are some really kind of key things that come through sort of a lot of the really high quality research that lives in this space. Number one, when high school students have access to a college course in high school, they are A, more likely to access college, and B, more likely to complete college. That is the sort of top line finding that runs through all of the research. That's regardless of prior academic performance, regardless of demographics, there is something about the act of taking a college course in high school that makes high school students more likely to go on to college and more likely to complete college. And so I think, dual credit as a college access and success strategy really sort of does come through the existing research very strongly. So more likely to access college, more likely to succeed college. They may also save time and money. More research, I think, is necessary in those two pieces of it to really sort of look at under what conditions do students save money, under what conditions do students save time. But I think, in terms of rock solid research base, more access, more success is really what we're looking at for dual credit.
Mm-hmm. So Alex, I'm glad you referenced that research paper. We're gonna be sure to provide access to that full document to everyone who's on with us today. So thanks for that. It sounds like that a big topic of conversation is access. When you talked about how that helps students access college in the future when they participate in dual credit, access is really important to us. So I'm thinking about here in Kentucky, what advice would you give us about how to expand access to students who aren't currently taking advantage of dual credit? If it's going to have these kind of benefits, how
Yeah.
can we make it more accessible to more students?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kentucky is in a great place in some ways, right? Like there are lots of the foundational pieces are in place. The dual credit scholarship, the work ready scholarship are really important tools to providing students with access to free college course experiences. But I think that as you kind of reference, right, that's not the only dimension to expanding access to students. Obviously, we know that there are issues with finding credentialed teachers to teach the courses in the high school classroom. That's something I think, the state's going to want to think about how to support those efforts. Looking at issues like how do we sort of think about eligibility criteria for these programs? There's a lot of research happening right now into looking at alternative eligibility criteria for dual credit beyond just standardized test scores and seeing what impact that has on access and achievement within dual credit. And also, honestly, I think, there is a lot of research out there about practices and things that programs can be doing to improve student access, and particularly to improve access to student populations who maybe are not participating at the rates that we might want to see them. Things like the Community College Research Center's dual credit playbook. And so, I think something like this, right, these sort of vehicles and mechanisms for sharing out best practices and sharing out what the research is telling us is important about these programs is going to be really helpful to it's both a state strategy and it's a local strategy to really kind of think about how do we expand access to more students. There's more that the state can be doing, and you and I have had lots of conversations about what that could look like with our partners at the other Kentucky agencies. And then there's also lots that the individual colleges and high school partners can be thinking about working on as well.
Yeah. So Alex, I know on our session today, we have a lot of people who are representing secondary schools, a lot of people who are representing post-secondary institutions. So can you kind of break that down a little bit more for us? Like, what would you recommend for high schools, and what would you recommend specifically for our post-secondary and even, at the state level, but more specifically for the folks who are on our session today? What can they do at their local level?
Yeah, I think there's an easy first step, right? Number one is go look at your data around dual credit participation. Kentucky is a state that is actually pretty blessed in terms of it's all publicly available data. It's on the school report card. You can look at dual credit participation broken down by student population. There's like 17 different populations of students. It's really quite excellent in terms of the availability of data to really look at that. I would say go pull that data and then go look at the data for the high school population as a whole and just sit them down next to each other and say, what do we learn from this, right? Like, what is this telling us about who's participating in our dual credit programs right now and who's not participating in our dual credit programs right now? That's going to look different dual credit program to dual credit program, depending upon where in the state you are, what kind of student population you're ultimately serving. And so that's probably going to bring up different sort of prescriptions for, maybe we're significantly underrepresented low-income student participation, or potentially there's a very rural part of the school district and we're not seeing many of those students participating in dual credit. That's going to sort of create a space for a conversation about, okay, well, we know the students that we're serving really well. From this data, we may be looking and seeing which students we're potentially not serving. Like, what conversations does that create in terms of, okay, what is it about this particular student population that means that, they're not participating in these programs or not at the levels we would like to, and we'd like to kind of think about, what would it take to improve their participation? Does that mean it's a transportation issue? Is it an information issue, right? Like, these are complicated programs. It's really difficult to explain what dual credit is and how to do it really well, right? And like, some of that can get into it. It's not always just a question of money or teachers. Sometimes it's a question of just communication, something that might be relatively easy for the dual credit programs to fix once the problem has been identified.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so start with data, figure out what you don't know about the situation, and then think about it. Okay, So Alex, I've got one last question for you. I know that you work a lot with other states.
Yeah.
And states who are leading the way in dual credit. And so I'm just wondering, based on your experience with other states, what are a couple of next steps that you might recommend for Kentucky as a whole, to get us on down the road with dual credit?
Yeah, I think there's two. One of which we're already working on, and I'll put a plug for a future webinar. Come back to the webinar about the revisions to the dual credit policy, because one of the things that we are trying to do as part of that is sort of set a really high level vision for what is the role of dual credit within Kentucky's education system. And so I think that's one thing that states are really starting to grapple with. There's a lot of dual credit, but we've not really done a really good job of answering the question, like why dual credit? What role does it play in the education system? So that's number one. Number two, how are we encouraging students to have the most intentional dual credit experiences possible? There's a lot of access to dual credit in Kentucky. There's still places we need to do a lot more work to expand access, but lots of students have lots of access. And now they have lots of access and the ability to take lots of courses. How are we making sure that those course experiences are the most meaningful, intentional experiences that they can be, that are aligned to however well-defined a student's post-high school goals are, right? Students shouldn't be taking dual credit just to take dual credit, right? Like taking large numbers of courses that don't sort of add up to anything. We want to make sure this is a meaningful experience for them. We want to make sure it is actioning them on a journey towards some kind of post-secondary degree, credential, into the workforce, into the military. And like, I think, how the system helps students make choices about what dual credit courses to be taking. And after taking one course, what's the next course and what's the next course after that is really the next challenge, I think, for us to address.
Okay. All right. So understanding the vision and then thinking about intentionality, like what is this dual credit course going to do for the student ultimately in their career or college path? All
Exactly.
right. Thank you, Alex. We're just about out of time. Any final words?
Just that I know it's a Kentucky audience, so I'm playing to a friendly crowd, which is, I actually think there's a huge amount of great work happening in the state of Kentucky right now. I really congratulate everybody for all of the work that you've been doing for this webinar series, and really excited to continue to partner with you on this moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today, for providing that national perspective on dual credit and helping us to think about how we can bring these ideas home to Kentucky. A few days ago, I did have the opportunity to also interview Representative James Tipton about how the Kentucky legislature has been and will continue to support dual credit for our Kentucky students. So I'm going to share a quick video here of that interview. You may want to have your volume control handy when I share the video, just to be sure that we have a good sound quality.
So thank you, Representative Tipton, for taking some time for us today. We know you've been a longtime champion of dual credit in the state. So I'd like to start the conversation by hearing a little bit about why you think dual credit opportunities are so important.
Well, thank you for that question, because it is a critical tool that we have that students can utilize. Our ultimate goal is to prepare our students to succeed in life. And one of the tools they can use is this dual credit scholarship. It gives them an opportunity while they're in high school to actually take courses that are general ed courses, or more recently our career and technical education courses. And students can actually graduate high school with credentials, with certificates, that go right into the workforce with a good paying job. Down the road, if they want to expand their education opportunities, they have that opportunity. But dual credit gives a good base for that opportunity. And also, we understand the significant cost of going to college. And students that utilize the dual credit scholarship can help reduce the burden of that cost by getting a good portion of their education out of the way while they're in high school.
I heard you mention the workforce. Do you see dual credit as having an impact there?
Oh, I think it's a vital role in preparing our workforce for the future.
Mm-hmm.
They say most jobs, 60 to 70% in the future, are going to require some type of post-secondary credential, whether it be because the jobs are more technical now,
Right.
We look at Kentucky, we've got the Blue Oval plant, battery plant coming to Glendale. Those jobs are going to require expertise in certain areas. I know we appropriate money to build a campus for Etam Community College there so that they can help prepare those employees, and those are the type of partnerships we're going to have. But dual credit and the workforce go hand in hand.
Okay, all right. You know, it might be helpful to share a little bit of background here. Can you tell us a little bit more about the history of dual credit in Kentucky? I know you've been around
Sure.
since the beginning. So talk a little bit about where we started with legislation and where we are now.
Well, sure. Originally, students had the opportunity to take 2 dual credit courses their junior and senior year. During the Bevin administration, Governor Bevin issued an executive order that established the Kentucky Workforce Scholarship, which is for students, for adults who are out of school. We passed that into law, and later he issued another executive order that incorporated the work ready scholarship into high school, so students can take 8 career and technical education courses. Now, for the last several years, through budget language, we have kind of realigned that. So anything in high school is dual credit. Prior to the last budget, students can take 10 dual credit classes, those 2 original Gen Ed, and also 8 courses. In the last 22 budget, House Bill 1, we included language that would allow students to take up to 4 general ed classes, dual credit in their junior and senior year, along with the 8 career technical education classes. That's 2 per year they can take. So right now, students have an opportunity to take 12 classes. I'm working on legislation now to clarify that and codify that in statute as we move forward. But that's a little bit of the history, and that's what the current opportunities are for students to engage with the dual credit scholarship.
Yeah, wow, we've come a long way. I'm excited about the changes that have taken place over time. You know, I know that you and I both share a desire for more students to be able to take advantage of the incredible opportunity that dual credit affords. So I'm curious if you could talk to current high school students and families, what advice would you give them about how they could prepare for or make the most of the dual credit opportunity?
Well, sure. I think the most important thing is they need to be aware of it. And we've got our schools doing a good job. KEA, Kentucky Education, Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, administers a scholarship, just as everybody knows. These are paid for through lottery funds. A lot of people may not know that. But dual credit scholarships are paid through those lottery funds. And it actually, one of the things that the schools, the community colleges and other schools that offer, they're reimbursed 50% of the normal cost for those dual credit scholarships, how they're reimbursed. But there are so many opportunities out there. There are so many jobs out there, and I tell students all the time, you may be working in a job someday, a career that hadn't been thought of yet. But it's so important to have those skills. We have so many job openings now. We have a workforce participation issue. So many jobs in the healthcare industry is a major need. Engineering, Kentucky is a strong state for manufacturing, and those jobs take skills. We need more teachers in the state, and a lot of our school districts are starting educator pathway programs where students can start that process early in high school through that educator pathway program, and that shortens the time. And whether or not a student wants to engage in the workforce immediately after high school, they would have that opportunity with these credentials or certificates, but it also gives them a leg up and gets them started on the process to getting an associate's degree or possibly a bachelor's or more. So it's just a great opportunity that families and students can utilize while they're in high school to help prepare them for the challenges they're going to face in life.
Yeah. I hear you making a strong connection between dual credit and career opportunities or, future goals that students might have.
That's correct. And, a lot of times students, I talked to a student yesterday, I heard him say, I don't know what I want to do in life. That's all right. But maybe some of these dual credit classes will give students opportunities to explore. different options and help them out. And one thing that we did in this last budget is we put a lot more funding into career and technical education, particularly at the local level and these local high schools. So that's brought more opportunities for students to participate in things they probably never thought or dreamed of they could have an opportunity to learn about. So things like graphic design. I was recently toured a high school in the district, and they have drone classes on how to fly a drone. And they have classes on, like say, graphic design. They were able to purchase with that extra money a bunch of welders and had students in there that are going to be certified in welding when they get out of high school. A lot of career opportunities there. And it's just so many possibilities that are out there for the way we have our programs designed here in Kentucky.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing the opportunities that the dual credit scholarship has opened up for students, and then the way that our high schools have innovated around, especially those career technical courses. It's definitely been an incredible journey for dual credit in Kentucky, and we really appreciate all that you've done to promote that. I'm curious, one last question. I'm just curious, what is your hope for the future of dual credit here, and where would you like to see it go next?
That's a great question. And I think one of the challenges that we have with dual credit and with career and technical education is not every school district has the opportunity. They're limited on what they can offer because of resources in the community. And a lot of times it's the availability of a career and technical education teacher, teaching course. So I think we really need to work on strengthening our educator pipeline and getting people engaged in those opportunities, and just providing more opportunities to maybe some of our rural districts. They haven't had that chance, and I personally would like to see us provide more opportunities for dual credit in high school. I know that there are some high schools. I know the situation one high school is partnering with one of our four-year universities, and students are graduating high school with associate's degrees. So as funding is available, of course, I mentioned that the dual credit scholarship is funded by lottery dollars. So are a lot of other scholarships and grants. So we have to balance those needs out. But I like us to continue looking for opportunities and be flexible, because the subjects we're teaching today, we may be teaching something entirely different. I recently was in a meeting talking about the increased demand for data science, and people, that's a growing need in our state. So as our economy changes, as our workforce changes, we're just going to have to be flexible and adjust with the needs of the workforce.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Tipton, for taking time today to spend with us and talk a little bit about dual credit. Any final words?
Well, thank you, Robin, for the opportunity. And I would just encourage the students and parents out there who might be listening that there are a lot of great opportunities out there, and just take the time to invest those opportunities, talk to the counselors at your school, and get engaged. And it's our goal for you and your students to have a successful life, a successful career, and taking advantage of the dual credit scholarship is a great way to get a head start on that.
Okay. I want to really encourage you to continue to follow the progress of dual credit in Kentucky legislation. Our state is really leading the way towards student success and a well-prepared workforce. At this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague Trinity Walsh for our Kentucky Data Moment and Data Challenge.
Thanks, Robin. As you heard from our guests today, dual credit can play an important role in helping our Kentucky students with their future, not only in advancing their college progress, but allowing students to become ready for the workforce. And this is where we challenge you. As you can see from this data, we're doing a great job as a state growing dual credit. The numbers keep increasing. As Representative Tipton stated, our legislators are working hard to give more students availability to take courses with the expansion of the dual credit scholarships. But while our numbers are going up, we need to make sure we're ensuring that all students have the opportunity and access to take the most meaningful dual credit courses. This is where we challenge you to look at your student populations and find out where your school or district can make improvements. Just like Alex mentioned earlier today, we're going to give you some resources to help you with your review of your dual credit programming. Since our webinar is brief, you'll want to do each of these tasks after our webinar is complete. On the screen is a bit.ly and a QR code that will take you to the dual credit audit starter worksheet. These resources will also be available to you on our dual credit resources webpage, so you can go back to this later. This will allow you to start to identify any students who you might want to focus on getting more involved in dual credit. Once you have your worksheet ready to go, you're going to need some data for that worksheet. I'm going to give you 2 online resources that will give you the data that you need to get moving on this work. We're going to start with KY Stats. If you've never used KY Stats before, it's really an amazing and robust tool that we have in Kentucky. While you can use this tool to help guide with all kinds of planning and preparation in your programming, today we're only going to consider dual credit. So you'll start by navigating to the KY Stats reports by going to kystats.ky.gov. Then, to make it easy, just type in dual credit into the search bar. This will give you 2 detailed reports that are very robust: the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship Report and the Dual Credit Feedback Report. You'll want to take some time after this webinar to look at and engage with each of these reports to see how schools and districts are taking advantage of dual credit opportunities for all student populations. Additionally, you'll want to use the data provided to you in each school's Kentucky School Report Card. Again, if you've never had the chance to use this tool, it has a wealth of data and information. Start by going to kyschoolreportcard.com and then typing in the name of your school or district. Once you're on your school's page, you'll want to navigate to your dual credit reports by following these 3 steps on the screen. You'll scroll down the screen until you find Advanced Coursework, then click on Explore Advanced Coursework Data. And once on this screen, you'll want to click on the Dual Credit tab, and from there, you'll see your specific district and school data points for the last several years. Once you've located and gathered your data, take some time to think about how you're going to increase access and attainment of dual credit programming in your school. Determine your dual credit team. This will take more than one set of eyes. These team members are anyone at your school or district who has an investment in this programming. This could be a district administrator, a principal, school counselor, dual credit teacher, student, and/or parent. These are just some examples of who might be on your team. Now you're going to take the time to use all of your data resources available. This could be data provided in the tools that I just showed you, or data provided to you by your dual credit post-secondary partners, or any school or district level data that you might have. Then you're going to identify those students who are underrepresented or barriers that might be impeding your programming. This might include appropriate course selection, funding, transportation, or even access to resources. Every school is going to be a little bit different in their needs. Once you've identified those student populations that need to focus on barriers to access, what action can you take to encourage students to participate or to reduce or remove these barriers? Think outside of the box here. Can you establish some partnerships with community members or businesses to help? How can you communicate with your students and families better about these programs? How can you better partner with your post-secondary institutions in advising course selection? Get creative. And as you'll see with some of our future webinars, some people are getting quite innovative to reduce these barriers and increase access and support. And finally, once you've determined your first steps, commit to this plan. Make sure you know who will be in charge of each task and start working towards your goals. Hopefully, this audit tool and the voices that you've heard today will give you a place to really think about analyzing what's happening in your own dual credit programs and make some progress in moving the needle closer to access for all Kentucky students.
All right, thank you, Trinity. This 30 minutes has gone really fast. I want to just summarize some quick takeaways. First of all, dual credit is good for students in many different ways. Dual credit should be meaningful and it should align to students' career goals. There is a lot of support available for Kentucky students and families, and just engage. We're just getting started in Kentucky, So we want to really encourage you to stay involved with legislation, updates, tools, and resources that we will continue to share with you. I have just a couple of announcements before we leave today. First of all, you don't want to miss our next dual credit in Kentucky session, which will be on March 2nd. We're going to explore the differences between general education dual credit and CTE dual credit. We're going to talk about how these two interact and the best ways for students and the kinds of career experience opportunities that are currently available to our high school students. Once again, we're going to be joined by some expert guests, including Leslie Slaughter, who leads Career Pathways and K-12 alignment here at CPE, but also we'll be joined by Amanda Jerome from Davis County High School and Dr. Meredith Skaggs from the Owensboro Career and Technical College. If you are interested in getting even more serious about dual credit in your space, whether it's secondary or post-secondary, we want to encourage you to sign up today to learn more about the 2023 Dual Credit Community of Practice that we'll be launching this year. We're going to be working together to innovate so that we can have even better outcomes for students and so that our Kentucky systems support dual credit and that these are strong and secure systems. I just want to let you know there's no obligation if you give us your information. This is just to let us know you're interested and would like to hear more. Again, I want to say thanks to our special guest today, Alex Perry, and to Representative Tipton for sharing such great information. And thank you for taking the time to participate. We hope that you'll connect with us on social media and that you'll reach out to Trinity or me if you have any lingering questions. I see that we have some questions in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to follow up with you about that. We also would love to hear any great ideas that you have to share about dual credit and how that's going in your space. So our contact information can be found there on the screen. Until next time, we hope that you have a great Thursday. Thanks for joining.